What's up, everybody? Welcome to PLD Project's Crown Jewels. I am your host, PLD, and this is the podcast where I take you through every song in the Queen catalog, including solo projects, one by one in chronological order, and we figure out which version of the song is the greatest, whether that's the single edit, the album version, the live version, and figure out what the best version is or the Crown Jewel version is, and we add that to our ultimate playlist. Now, in addition, I also give some history on the track, break it down a little bit, and I see if this song hits my personal top 10. And you can tell me if it hits your personal top 10 Queen songs. Now, usually I provide YouTube links in the description, and I let you listen to each version of the track as we go along before we break it down. This week is a little different because I have nothing to listen to. Well, why is that? Well, it's because this podcast has been one that's evolved over time, over the 4 albums we've been doing so far. At one point, I decided to initially include the tours after the album had been released because of they do live covers or they do live versions of songs that they're not actually from the albums they're on. So they consider kind of their own crown jewel. I like to add those to the ultimate playlists, such as when they did Jailhouse Rock or when they did Big Spender, things of that nature. But this is kind of unique for the first time because for the first time, the Night at the Opera tour, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit today, there's nothing really new that hasn't already been talked about previously. So I don't really have anything to listen to, nothing to really add to the ultimate playlist, so to speak. So I guess this will be kind of a short episode this week. I'll just give you a little bit of background on the Night at the Opera tour and as a precursor. And then next week we will get into the day at the races. Now, I thought I was going to have a song for you guys to listen to and a song to add to the playlist. However, there was a discrepancy in the information from some of the research I did. I've read a lot of books about it, but for concerts and to keep me currently up to date, I generally rely on two websites, queenconcerts.com and queenlive.ca. Now, queenconcerts.com is a very in-depth diving into the Queen concerts, the Freddie, Brian, Roger live appearances, Queen and Paul Rodgers, Queen Adam Lambert. It's up to date, gives you set lists, tracks that were scarcely played, tracks that were there, gives you all sorts of cool information. Queenlive.ca, run by my friend Bob Wegner, is another indispensable version. It's his website that gives us the deep dive on live killers that I use. As well, though, it is a deep dive only on the Freddie era of Queen. It doesn't go into any of the solo stuff, doesn't go into any of the Queen Plus era. It's specifically the Queen with Freddie Mercury era, but it has a lot of other cool information that Queen Concerts doesn't have. And the discrepancy lied within Queen's cover of Elton John's Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. On Queen Concerts, it is listed under the tracks played scarcely for the Night at the Opera tour. Now, the Night at the Opera tour takes place between 1975 and 1976. On queenlive.ca, though, it has a section of songs played live, and one of it is covers that Queen played live. But it also gives the information of first known performance and last known performance. And according to queenlive.ca, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, the first live performance was February 4th, 1977, which would place it in the next set of concerts to be the Day at the Races era concerts. So I was kind of up in arms. I could introduce it now, but I didn't want to because I actually trust for the Queen Live .ca. I trust that for the Queen era even more than Queen concerts. And it's not a disparity meant on Queen concerts. I just feel like this is specifically their focus, queenlive.ca. I kind of feel maybe a typo was made. I don't know for sure though. Maybe Queen concerts actually has it right, and they have a bootleg that they found that Queen played it earlier. But at least for this podcast, I'm going to choose to save it until the Day at the Races concert tour episode. What does that mean, though? It doesn't mean I can just go over the tour information we have for Night at the Opera and end the podcast and go from there. So, like I said, the Queen Night at the Opera tour ran from 1975 to 1976, specifically November 14th of 1975, and it went all the way to April 23rd, 1976. The first part of the tour, first leg as you were, is a UK tour. It did Liverpool, Coventry, Bristol, Cardiff, Taunton, Bournemouth, Southampton, Manchester, and a bunch of dates in London, and Wolverhampton, Preston, Birmingham, Newcastle, Dundee, Aberdeen, Glasgow. And then they had a special date, December 24th, 1975, at the Hammersmith Odeon. Now, this was a special concert, Christmas Eve concert that was broadcast on the BBC, and much later on, it was released as the official live album, A Night at the Odeon, as a box set. So that's a well-known gig, one of the most famous Queen concerts, some people's favorite Queen concert of all time, particularly. I do highly enjoy it. It's not my absolute favorite, but it is a great depiction of where the band was at this time. However, it is also a gig that is whose set list differed greatly from the actual set list of the rest of the tour. I think they did it because they switched it out because the broadcast was happening. They had to shorten some things, they changed some things around, and even reverted back to how it was during the Sheer Heart Attack era a little bit. I'm not certain exactly why, but that's what they did. Now, after that concert, they took the holidays off, and then in January 27th, to be precise, they went over to the United States and they did a run of gigs in America. Waterbury, Boston, Philadelphia, 4 gigs at the Beacon Theater in New York City, Detroit, Cincinnati. They went to Cleveland, Toledo, Saginaw, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Chicago, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Madison, Fort Wayne, Milwaukee, St. Paul, Berkeley, Santa Monica for 4 gigs, San Diego. So March 12th, 1976, that was their last day of the U.S. leg of the tour in San Diego. After that, they jumped ship and went over to Japan for a set of dates starting in March of 22nd of 1976 in Tokyo, Nagoya, Himeji, Fukuoka, Osaka, Tokyo again, Sendai, back to Tokyo to end it at 4/4/1976, April 4th. At that point, they jumped a ship again and went to Australia for a set of gigs. Starting April 11th in Perth, went to Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne, and ended the tour April 23rd, 1976 in Brisbane, Australia. Looking for some undocumented recordings, some bootleg recordings of these concerts. Some of the better ones were the Boston gig from January 30th, 1976, and the Tokyo, April 1st, 1976. April 4th is also a pretty good bootleg as well. But they give a good overview of what the concerts were like at the time. Now, the typical set list for these gigs, it started off with the opera section of Bohemian Rhapsody. It's a tape, and went into the hard rock section. That's how they decided to do it. Remember, they didn't know exactly how to do Bohemian Rhapsody full yet because they didn't want to do a lot of backing tapes, which went back and forth. They didn't figure it all out really until later. So this is the way they decided to do it. They opened up at the opera section on the tapes, kind of an Enjoy the Lights. In the hard rock section, they played out there live, and then at the end of the hard rock section, they segued right into Ogre. After Ogre Battle, they made the debut of Sweet Lady. It didn't last too long on tour, but that was in this tour list. They went White Queen, and they went to Flick of the Wrist from the Sheer Heart Attack album. Then they started the medley. They went back to Bohemian Rhapsody again. This is the ballad section they started with. They interjected into Killer Queen, into March the Black Queen, and they closed it out with Bohemian Rhapsody, the reprise, the ending part of Bohemian Rhapsody. From there, they went into the Bring Back Leroy Brown instrumental. Then it was time for Brian to play. He did Brighton Rock, and then he ended it, though, with Son and Daughter, a little brief snippet of Son and Daughter to end the song. Afterwards, they did the Prophet's Song from Night at the Opera, again making its debut, and I kind of segued it right into Stone Cold Crazy. What a rockin' riff that was. From Prophet's Song into Stone Cold Crazy, that was a cool part of the concert. The band did Doing All Right from the first album, Keep Yourself Alive also from the first album, their first big hit single, Seven Seas of Rye. Then they went back to Liar, which was still a crowd favorite at the time, not quite the closer anymore, but one of those ones that was knew was going to be towards the end of the gig. And they closed out the main section of the concert with In the Lap of the Gods, revisited from the Sheer Heart Attack, the big sing-along kind of thing, the precursor to We're the Champions. After that, they would do an encore. That's where Now I'm Here, which had been the set opener and was a set opener for that famous December 24th gig, as I mentioned. Then after Now I'm Here, they come back to another encore, which would include a rock and roll medley of sorts, usually a big spender and Jailhouse Rock, before, of course, closing it out the taped version of God Save the Queen as they did their bows. Now, they did spice it up on occasion. Some tracks that were played on the tour, but only sporadically or very few times. The Japanese gigs and some US gigs did get the debut of Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon, the quick 1 minute jaunt from A Night at the Opera. Son and Daughter got played it's in its full version in the early dates of the UK tour. Also making some appearances, Modern Times Rock and Roll, See What a Fool I've Been, Hangman, which of course is a great deal for the Queen fans because they never got that studio version ever. Hangman got some great dates, especially with Japan. Sometimes it was a full version, sometimes they did a medley with Modern Times Rock and Roll. And of course, they always did a bunch of different rock and roll songs. Shake, Rattle, and Roll, Stupid Cupid, Bebop, Alula, included in that kind of big jailhouse rock, big spender riff at the end. And finally, Father to Son did make an occasional appearance from Queen 2. And that'll pretty much do it, folks. Again, like I said, it's going to be a short one this week. Next week, I'll definitely make up for it as we dive into A Day at the Races. The first track will be Tie Your Mother Down, a song that has been played numerous times over the year, from Queen to Brian May solo, Queen and Paul Rogers, Queen and Adam Lambert. Brian does a country rock version at some point. A lot of different things to dive into on that. So, like I said, making it up for you time-wise next week for sure. I really appreciate you checking out with me. I hope you had a good time and maybe learned a little bit about the Night at the Opera Tour. And again, if you like this stuff, please click that like, click that subscribe. And if you're listening on the audio feed, leave that review. Let me know what you think. Let me know you want to hear about the tour versions. These are kind of like special, almost bonus episodes, really, as I kind of evolve the podcast, so to speak, a little different than my usual episode of Crown Jewels, but hopefully get something out of it. If not, let me know that too. I want to know. But if you do like that, if you want to support me even further, patreon.com/PLD projects. We have a fun crew over there. We have a live Facebook channel. We use some extra content, some live hangs, some specifically bonus content for just the patrons. And of course, you can join fellow patrons, some really cool people over there like Austin Cadell, like Matthew Kearns, like Jeremiah Morris, like Brandon Buckingham, Jeff Altman. I really appreciate you guys and all of my patrons. Really couldn't do it without you. You guys really do help keep the lights on. So thank you so much for that. But that's it, folks. That's it. Please take a look at all the other stuff on PLD Projects. The main PLD Projects YouTube channel has all sorts of movie and TV content, mediocre white dudes on film, Crown Jewels. This is Crown Jewels. Review. We do Holy Snopes, which is a Star Wars podcast. I do The Harris Dance is coming, so I can't wait to do that. I'm going through Ed Harris's IMDb credits. Let me know what you think. All right. Until next time, keep on rocking. And of course, God save the Queen. Bye now.